Welcome to Rudy's Common Sense, another episode. And this one is a extremely serious one, and one that I was dreading having to do. I have with me Dr. Maria, my partner on Uncovering the Truth and the producer of our podcast.
I'm so happy you invited me on, Rudy. You know, you have a lot of expertise. You're known as not just America's mayor, but America's lawyer, prosecutor. A lot of people admired you way before you became mayor. And I'm just an average Joe. That's what I feel like. I represent the normal guy, right? The guy who goes to work every day, the guy who pays taxes, the guy who just wants criminals to be put in jail and have safety for ourselves. So I'm glad you invited me on. A lot of times I'm on your podcast for healthcare, leadership, politics, and I feel on this subject, I'm going to be speaking for a lot of people in the United States that see our dream of a great country going down the toilet.
Well, you know, there couldn't be anyone better to be every man, every woman, the common man, the common woman, than Dr. Maria, because she's from New Hampshire. And I think we have a disproportionate number of people from New Hampshire who fit that category. So we'll be talking to Dr. Maria quite a bit throughout this podcast. Well, tonight, we should tell you, we taped this earlier because we're doing a live show with Value Entertainment and with Patrick David, whose studio we're in.
What a beautiful studio.
Right. And
staff.
Dr. Maria is with me, as you see, and Ted. Tell them about the show tonight first, so they know what we're doing while they're watching this.
So we'll be with Patrick David and another special guest, Dave Rubin.
Dave Rubin, who's on one of my podcasts, which you can go back and get at Giuliani,
And we'll be on with Patrick David's live podcast this evening. And, of course, he's been doing this now for a number of years and has built a following of literally millions of viewers.
And it'll be the excitement of a live audience, right?
It's always nice. You know, both you and I feed off of people's energy, and it's a great thing to relate to people. Even when you don't agree on everything, we love people, right? We're trying to help in our own way to save our country by getting information out. That's why we do. That's how we started Uncovering the Truth.
Yeah, we started Uncovering the Truth
during the pandemic.
And now we have I have a show on ABC every day from 3 to 4, WABCradio.com.
Yep, you can get
it
anywhere.
She and I have Uncovering the Truth on Sunday between 10 and 11 on WABC.com. Mm-hmm. We have the podcast twice a week at RudyGiulianiCS.com.
And you have a live stream every night?
And we have our live stream, which I have to tell you is a hit.
Big hit. You're getting better ratings than many of the news shows. But my question is actually for Ted Goodman. Uh-oh. Ted, I think you have a fan club now. People literally are like, Ted, where's Ted? Tell Ted I said hello.
Particularly if we go to conservative events. Oh, you're Ted. Because he's not on the camera all the time. He's on the camera a lot, but not on the camera all the time. It depends on where we are, the venue we're in, if we can do that.
You could hear his voice.
So they hear his voice.
Yeah.
So a lot of them hear him, but they don't get to see him. And then when they get to see him, the women. Well, in any event, so here's why I believe there is something unfortunate, and we're going to have to do something on this program that I always regretted doing. I started way back when I started podcasting. I started saying, if we're not careful, because Biden was then running for president, and from the very beginning, I saw in him a tool that the communists were going to use to try to take us over. The culmination of 20 years, 40 years, 80 years, 100, depending on how you look at Marxism and its development. They finally saw their way to being able to basically conquer us and make China the preeminent country in the world. So I started doing a regular podcast called Express Train to Socialism.
Marxism. Well, I remember it. There's a bullet train on the cover.
I kind of built up. I first began to say socialism because I thought if I said communism, people would just reject it out of hand Like, you're some kind of go back to McCarthy.
One of them's named Marxism.
Yes.
Then
I kept moving.
Yeah.
Started with socialism. Then I went to Marxism. We are on an express train to communism.
You know what people are saying lately?
And we've pulled in the station. We're there. We're there.
I wanted to read this really quick, and this is just
we are there, and
the common
know that.
definition of communism. An ideology, however you want to say it, or system that aims for classless society with common or state ownership of property and wealth. Well, can I say, look at the communist countries. They're elites, right? They put themselves almost like royals. They're above you. They are extremely wealthy. You even look at the Chinese Communist Party. All of those people are either multimillionaires or billionaires. Same with Russia. You will have nothing in like it. Who said that? Karl Schwab. These globalists who want a one world system. And I got to tell you, our elites have bought into it. The Democratic Party is now seen as evil. I'm not kidding. I'm not making a political thing because I'm a conservative. I've always had lots of friends who are Democrats, and even they say, I don't recognize my party. Well, to me is, why don't you do something about it then? It has to implode from within. If a conservative calls them out, they just say it's politics, and of course we're going to call them out. It's got to be the good people within that Democrat Party. And we've seen signs of this, right? Remember the pandemic? Mm-hmm. Lori Lightfoot? None of you can go to a hairdresser. You'll kill each other. But she can go to the hairdresser. Nancy Pelosi, same thing. She can go to a hairdresser. Gavin Newsom, king, right? He thinks he's a king. No going to restaurants. He goes to fancy restaurants during it. They've already shown their colors.
Well, that's an elite and within a communist system.
But we're
that's
not
exactly
doing
what they do.
enough
Well,
about
let me give you another example. I have said from the very beginning, and it's one of the things that they fooled people about. They shouldn't have. If people just have to read a teeny bit, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter has, from the very beginning, been a complete communist Marxist organization. Not only that, they admit it.
Yeah.
They admit it, but the press doesn't tell you that. Patrisse Cullors is a perfect example of a communist Marxist leader. She tells you she is. She's proud of her Marxist training. Her major goal is to make us a communist country. Her second major goal is to make us, 40 genders, because she began as a lesbian activist, and one of these people who would like to make us a genderless society. She wants to change God's creation, and of course her second major goal is to destroy the American family. She says it.
She says it in her,
not just
is it a manifesto or a blueprint? I don't know what you call it.
Much better if they can take the kid at 2 years old and start training it. Isn't that exactly what the teachers union is doing?
Yeah.
Isn't that what the teachers? Isn't that what McAuliffe was saying last year when McAuliffe said, "Well, the state should really decide, or about the education, not the parents."
Yeah.
And I hear Democrats on all the time saying, "Well, the parents are uneducated, and the parents are this, and the parents are that." When did that start? I mean, it's been traditional in a Western society, most societies, that the parents are the primary decision maker for a minor child, not the state. You know where that happened? In Hitler's Germany.
Amen.
In Stalin and Lenin's Russia, and in Mao's China. That's where the state took over. But the American people, I don't know what's wrong. Many people seem to be immune to it. So here are the two things that just set me off this week. One is Bragg indicting the former president of the United States for the first time in our history on a case that is a demonstrable piece of junk.
Yeah.
A case for which he should really be taken before the Bar Association, and his license to practice law should be taken away because he doesn't know the law. What he knows is communist ideology. And I can demonstrate that to you 50 ways because I know the law. And I really was a prosecutor, and I really put very bad people in prison. He's not a prosecutor because he puts very bad people right back out on the street to rape you, beat you, murder you, because he wants this to be a communist state. He wants as much chaos as he can get, and he got paid to do it by Soros.
Look back.
And so did 50 others. Soros wants us to be one world, communist world. He hates American nationalism. He has put in $40 to $50 million to ruin American cities, and he's getting people killed, particularly young black males, hand over fist, getting them killed by people who are put out, back out on the street, and we're going to show you that in just a few minutes.
If you look at the New York Post pre this Donald Trump indictment, article after article about Bragg putting people on the streets who are murderers and rapists. One of his first days in office, he sent a memo to all of his assistant DAs and the people who work under him with a list of, these are the crimes I'm not going to prosecute. That's dereliction of duty. In New York, and correct me if I'm wrong because you're Mr. New York, the governor can remove a district attorney.
Yes, correct. Right in
but
the
it's all
Constitution.
about standing with your party. Democrats never call out each other when they're doing wrong. And you had Republican people going for governor, Zeldin and Giuliani, the younger Giuliani, Andrew Giuliani, both vowing, my first day in office, I'm going to relieve Alvin Bragg of his duties. So the reason I say this is he's already had a terrible reputation of not following the law. And then he comes out with this indictment, which all scholars, you, Dershowitz, all lawyers, no matter what party you belong to, are saying this is the flimsiest case I've ever seen in my life. And then during a press conference, Alvin Bragg was asked by a reporter, well, you mentioned that there's going to be that there's some kind of other crime. Where is it? And he ignorantly says, well, New York state law says I don't have to put it in there. Well, can you imagine if Dr. Maria all of a sudden gets targeted because I do express my opinions and they tell me I'm going to prosecute you, but I don't have to tell you the crime? Isn't that unconstitutional?
About as unconstitutional as you can get. It's not just unconstitutional, uncivilized. The right to be apprised of the charges against you, Dr. Maria, goes back to the Magna Carta. I mean, this idiot, this servant of Soros,
The devil.
this incredibly dumb person, but also an evil dumb person who's getting people killed, is saying that New York law allows you to just say crime. You don't have to describe the crime. Now, if there is a New York law like that, I haven't found it. I'd love to see it. But it doesn't matter. The Constitution of the United States requires that you be apprised of the charges against you. It's inherent in the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment. The Fifth Amendment applies to the federal government. The 14th Amendment applies to the states. I'm telling you, you cannot have spent a day in law school and say what he said. You can't. Now, I actually believe he's two things. I think he's a dedicated Marxist, owned by Soros, and I think he is one dumb lawyer. Really dumb. Because this is a dumb thing to do. See what I gave it? I gave it an F-. That's the indictment. I want to put up on the, if we can, I want you to see the
New York criminal?
Honestly, no. I want to see the indictment. And it is unbelievable because it is exactly, can we blow it up a little?
Yep, there you go.
It's exactly that one paragraph there that is virtually repeated 34 times or 33 times. And all they do is change the date of the entry of the invoice.
Yeah, someone told me it this way. It was like you had it was Alan Dershowitz said he worked in a deli as a youngster, and the owner was trying to teach him how to slice the pastrami in the most narrow way. And he said, this is that slice of pastrami sliced 34 times.
Yeah, I mean, this is a con job.
Yeah.
I was a prosecutor. When you take one essential act, and the act here is the alleged payment of the money to the porn star, and that's the alleged crime is that it was done to further some crime.
Do you know, a day after all this happened, another court in New York again sided with Donald Trump, and Stormy Daniels had to pay Donald Trump money.
It was a court in California.
Oh, it was?
Yeah,
okay,
in California.
all right.
It was a federal court.
I will always defer to you on that.
She had to give him hundreds of thousands in legal fees.
Excuse me.
Because of the unfair, malicious charges against him.
Yeah.
Not only that, these charges in this piece of junk here that has an F. I don't know if you see mine. Can you see mine, Ted?
Yes.
Professor Giuliani gave it an F.
Yep.
These charges, even if this were true, this is about as minor as you can get.
It would be a misdemeanor, correct?
Yeah, he
if
tries
it
to
was
make
true.
If it were true, compare this to what Bill Clinton did. Compare this to what Bill Clinton did, but actually did.
He lied.
He committed perjury. But before that, he was getting oral sex in the Oval Office while he was on the phone with congressmen.
So disgusting.
Now, if we're all concerned about someone having sex back in 2006, one time, with a consenting adult porn star, if that has us all morally outraged, what about taking advantage of a young girl who is
obviously
impressionable,
starstruck,
obsessed,
right?
obsessed with you? You're the president of the United States.
Powerful man.
You have oral sex with her while you're talking to congressman. And you're the president of the United States. No, you're a piece of junk. That's what you are. You're a damn piece of junk.
And he paid $800,000 or more to Paula Jones. I don't know if that was campaign funds, but we absolutely know that John Edwards used nearly $1 million for his mistress. That was campaign funds. And what happened to him?
Well, he got indicted because they didn't like him, but he got acquitted by a jury.
He got acquitted.
Now,
so there's all this precedence. We're laying this out for the Trump lawyers here. We're
also laying it out for the American people that this, if it didn't happen to Clinton, didn't happen to Hillary Clinton, doesn't happen to Biden is sitting in the White House with 30 to 50 misdemeanors provable in the
He's
computer.
compromised by the Chinese Communist Party.
Right in the computer. It's provable. We have a career criminal sitting in the White House with a son next to him who looks like he was working for the Chinese government. And probably he is too. The president. I mean, he makes decisions in favor of the Chinese government all the time. He got at least $31 million. What, do you have to be a fool not to figure it out? And then we indict the ex-president for basically spitting on the sidewalk. That's what this amounts to. And by the way, I'm going to show you that it's not even legal and it isn't even a violation of the law. But I'm telling you, if it were, it's an indication when you can prosecute your political enemies for political reasons.
Yeah.
And you can get away with it. You're living in a totalitarian
We're no
state.
longer America.
New York is no longer part of America. Yeah. New York is a totalitarian, one-party state in which the criminal justice system can be used by the prevailing party to destroy the opposition, to destroy them politically and to destroy them personally, to destroy them financially. And that power is used all the time. Have we become a communist state? Yes, we have. And plus, they want to take all your money and redistribute it.
Yeah.
And they're now beyond the halfway point.
Much to my chagrin, Rudy. So we're seeing this happen in the Justice Department, whether it's DAs paid and bought by Soros or judges. And I know you want to talk about a case in a minute about a judge in New York. It's happening in the medical society and healthcare. We now have a perversion going on in the American Academy of Pediatrics, saying it's okay to mutilate a child. We've seen case after case of these kids who had mutilation surgery, a woman having her breasts removed. Now they're 22, 25, saying, I have all these health problems because of the hormones, and I don't want to be a man. I'm really a woman. What do you do now? Case after case. There's a young lady called Chloe who is suing Kaiser Permanente, saying that none of these doctors stood up for what was right. What happened to do no harm? We are seeing such a perversion in our country and all these organizations. We saw it with the CDC during the pandemic. They did not stay to factual information. They went with a Democrat, socialist, Marxist, communist lines.
They followed China.
Yeah.
They followed the Chinese formula for what to do about it, and the Chinese formula what to do about it was to kill us as much as possible, the way they do with fentanyl. But that's another whole subject that Dr. Maria is an expert on. In fact, Give us how they can get in touch with you, Dr. Maria.
A lot of people write me through my website, drmariaryan.com. It says for media or speech inquiry, but a lot of people write to me. One thing that I can't diagnose you over the email. I get a lot of people who write me about their ailments. I got to actually talk to you, physically examine you. But you can get a hold of me that way. I'm on a number of social media. I'm not the best with it, but Twitter, what am I on Twitter? At Maria Ryan NH for New Hampshire. Getter.
She loves New Hampshire.
And I love Getter. Getter, in truth, I'm at Dr. Maria. And Facebook, Maria Ryan NH.
Yeah, and she gets lots of inquiries, but if you want to communicate with her on this subject or anything else, that's the way to do it.
I do take a lot of what you say or what concerns you, and I relay it on Uncovering the Truth.
She does every week.
The radio show. I say, I'm hearing from people from Wisconsin that they cannot believe who just got elected. So I'm able to give your voice a little amplification through Uncovering the Truth and Rudy's show during the week.
And she's the producer of the podcast.
Yeah.
So a lot of those podcasts that you write to me about that you like so much.
Judge, Rudy.
Well, before I do that,
Okay.
I want to finish with this indictment because let's do a little law school lesson here.
Oh, I love learning.
If you look at this that group of words there on this piece of junk indictment, you'll see that it says. So what he has to do is he has to do like a he's got to do like a trick. The crime, the underlying issue is. He says that Trump entered a false business record when he entered into a non-disclosure agreement with this porn star. She's saying that they had sex once. He's saying they didn't.
What's this? You said they didn't.
They didn't. Yeah, I don't know what I did. I did too. Well, in any event,
Sorry.
It's a he said, she said. Yep. He said it didn't happen. She said it did.
And I say, who cares? But
he wants to settle it, or he wants it over with for many reasons, not the least of which is the embarrassment to his wife, his child, and to him, personal reason. He was also running for office, so that would be another reason, right?
I think it was before he ran for office.
No. It was right. It was? Well, it happened. My goodness, it happened like in prehistoric times. It happened in 2006. So he's dredging up one act happening over a decade ago, right? And it's a non-disclosure agreement, and he's prosecuting it as failure to enter a correct business record. First of all, there are many lawyers who would say that a non-disclosure agreement is not encompassed within that the meaning of that statute. And by the way, it's a misdemeanor statute. It's a misdemeanor. Minor crime. That's what misdemeanor means, Latin. So that misdemeanor, this gets really crazy. And you get an idea of how warped he is and his assistant district attorneys.
You mean Alvin Bragg?
Alvin Bragg.
Yep.
That misdemeanor is not able to be prosecuted because it happened over 6 years ago, and the statute is 6 years. And even though he was president and he was in the state long enough for that statute to run. He was a resident of the state long enough for that statute to run. There's no doubt that would be thrown out for statute of limitation, except by the most crooked Democrat judge, and that's possible in New York. But it would eventually, there's so many courts you review it, it would have to be thrown out. And he'd probably get legal fees, the president would, from the state.
He should. For
a completely baseless prosecution. So he's got to attach it to another statute. So he says, well, there is a law that makes it a felony to enter a false business record if you do it in pursuance of another crime. That's a felony. We thought through the leaks, the illegal criminal leaks from his office, just add that to the mix, that the crime was a illegal campaign contribution. Now, here are the problems with that. Number one, in the Edwards case, they decided it wasn't an illegal campaign contribution because although it was to help his campaign, it was also for personal reasons to hide it from his wife. And as long as there are personal reasons, it's no longer a campaign contribution. Oh. According to the commissioners of
Even though he used campaign funds, John Edwards did.
Yeah, Trump didn't.
No, I know that.
But in any event, it's not, in either case, whether you use campaign funds or you don't, If it's for a personal reason, it becomes a personal expense. You got to reimburse it then. Becomes a personal expense. Even if there are two reasons, if there's a personal reason, it's not a campaign contribution. Now, that is the interpretation of the federal government, and it's a federal law. And he wasn't prosecuted by the federal government for that reason. So this guy wants to prosecute him for that, even though the federal government says it's not a violation of federal law. Oh, well, wait. You ask me this, right? But he's not a federal prosecutor. He doesn't have the authority. He doesn't have the jurisdiction. The grand jury doesn't have the jurisdiction to indict for a federal crime. Yeah, he just warped our entire system. It's like our system doesn't exist. He can make it up. That's what happens in communist countries. That's what happens when you have a stupid man as district attorney. That's what happens when you have a communist as a district attorney. You voted for him. I didn't. That's totally ridiculous. It's a joke. It's an even bigger joke. And because he has this problem with this crime, he just calls it a crime. He says that he did it with the intent to commit another crime.
What's that crime?
But then he doesn't tell you what crime it is. We think it's the illegal campaign contribution. But then he says, well, it might be illegal in New York as an election law. But the New York law, we searched all of the election, applies to New York elections. Of course, right? This wasn't a New York election. It was a federal election.
Is that what you, is that?
No, we're going to get to that in a moment.
Okay.
There's a more basic problem. New York Criminal Procedure Law 200.50 tells you what must be in an indictment. It kind of repeats what was inherent in the Magna Carta that goes back 1,000 years about. You have to make let me have it in front of me here. Here it is. New York Criminal Procedure Law. An indictment must contain the name, the title of the action, that's 2, a separate accusation or count. Finally, number 4, a statement in each count that the grand jury, and then let's just drop down a few paragraphs because they're not relevant, accuses the defendant or defendants of a designated offense. A crime, generic crime, is not a designated offense. It doesn't designate anything. There are potentially 1,000 crimes that could be. You're supposed to defend yourself by guessing what the DA has in mind? This is ridiculous. And he says there's a New York law that allows you to do that. Please, show me the New York law, because I'll get it declared unconstitutional in 10 minutes. Just find me an honest judge. Get me a Democrat honest judge. Not necessarily the conclusion in the politicized New York City corrupt system. But we'd find one.
Every New Yorker should write a letter to the Bar Association and
get
to
rid
Governor
of them. Throw them out for doing this. A crime? You're indicting somebody for a crime? We don't know what it is. So it says designated offense in the law. Show me where that's changed, yeah. Bragg. Show it to me, you liar. Show it to me, you ignorant fool. Show it to me. Now, let's go down a little further to make it even clearer. In 6A, an indictment must, it says, asserts facts supporting every element of the offense charged, let's go, with sufficient precision to clearly apprise the defendant of the conduct which is the subject of the accusation. There's no precision. There are no facts here or in the statement of facts which apprise you of the crime that he selected. You're not supposed to guess. You're supposed to be charged with sufficient precision so you can defend yourself. That's basic fairness. You have not only violated the law of New York, you not only violated the Constitution of New York, the Magna Carta, you've violated human decency. What's wrong with you, Bragg? You a sick man?
Yeah, it's that Trump derangement syndrome. They just want to get Trump because he talked about the deep state. He exposed things that were blind to most of us because we were living a good life, just doing our thing, enjoying our family. We didn't know the corruption that was going on in the government and with the media. Now it's so clear. But thank God to Donald Trump for bringing it to everybody's attention.
May I make a personal point, Doctor?
Sure.
They have suspended me from the practice of law They should reinstate me to the practice line. They should suspend him.
Yeah, amen.
That is what he did here.
You've done nothing
It's
wrong.
not only lawless. It's not only unconstitutional. It's inhumane and indecent.
Yeah.
He's violating human rights.
Because we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
Oh, no, not according to Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi has.
Nancy Pelosi
what's
has told
Nancy
us the Democratic viewpoint. So did Mueller. People don't realize this. In the first 3 paragraphs of his report, his completely dishonest report, he says that Trump basically has to prove his innocence. His warped Democrat prosecutors, who were henchmen for the Democratic Party, basically turned around the standard of proof against Trump. And except for me and Jay Sekulow and a few people on a couple of nobody even notices that. I mean, it's a complete reversal of American history, American law, English law, Roman law.
Yeah.
And this guy is allowed to do this.
So up on the screen, we have Nancy Pelosi's tweet. The grand jury has acted upon the facts and the law. No one is above the law, and everyone has the right to a trial to prove innocence. Hopefully, the former president will peacefully respect the system which grants him that right.
What system is that? I believe that's the system was the system in the Soviet Union, Nancy. It is the system in China, and it was the system in Nazi Germany. That's the system that you're talking about, not the one that exists for Americans.
So Nancy
for
Pelosi,
patriotic
I can
Americans.
Say you are guilty of insider trading, right?
Oh, there's no question she did insider trading, but she's allowed to do it because she's
and I can say you're guilty even though you haven't had a trial.
Now, even though the law prohibits the application of that to her because she's one of those special, communists. She's a member of Congress.
Yeah.
If you do insider trading, you go to jail. If you're a member of Congress and you do insider trading, you don't.
Yeah.
And many members of Congress have been trying to fix that for about 5 years. Well, you know who's blocking it? Her.
Yeah, she
and her
blocked the
husband,
victim.
who's the one who does it.
Yeah. Yep. You can
How
look
much
at
more
people,
crooked can you be than Nancy?
Yeah.
How much more crooked can you be than that?
People who go into Congress, Senate, and they're made average wage, all of a sudden they're millionaires. How can that be when they're a public servant? I think of Bernie Sanders, right? The biggest communist in the world, or socialist, as he likes to call himself. He has 4 houses. How can that be when you've never held a job in the private
you
sector?
made before, Doctor, about the communists, which people don't realize because they're not educated any longer. We have a public education system that's run by a communist union. And then we'll get to Chicago. They just elected their own mayor in Chicago.
God.
And Chicago's not bad enough, and they elected a communist who worked for them. They contributed 65% of its campaign funds. And they're going to now, the teachers union has been running Chicago for a long time, but now they're going to run Chicago directly. They might as well get rid of the idiot they elected and just put a teachers union
I have to say
communist agent there.
something so sincerely because I'm perplexed over this.
Please.
And I love Chicago. I used to speak in Chicago up to 4 times a year. Love Chicago.
We met in Chicago.
Yeah, at a conference. We were both speaking at a
We were
conference.
both speaking at the same conference.
But this has been going on for decades and decades and decades about the shootings on the weekends, except it was never made the media. They had a chance. I was so proud of them when they decided they didn't want Lori Lightfoot anymore, who's a racist, and she doesn't even care about blacks dying every day. The amount is crazy. And they elect someone the same or worse. Rudy, what is happening? Is it truly fair elections? Is it that people are getting paid? We saw in 2,000 Mules, they used a lot of illegals. They paid them to stuff those Zuckerberg boxes. Is that still going on? Do people get paid to vote for someone?
Yes. Well, that's part of what the Washington Bar Association is going after me for, because I said in Philadelphia, this is done just as a matter of habit. They pay people to stuff the ballot box. They pay people to come in and to vote for the people who are on the rolls that are dead, moved out of the state.
Yeah. No, you're actually being factual.
And they are trying to remove me as a lawyer for saying that in defense of my client.
You know what? We need everybody to write letters right now.
Is that un-American?
Reinstate Rudy. Best lawyer right now. Trump needs this great lawyer. We all need this great lawyer. Plus, it's political persecution. You came out with information about Ukraine first in the Bidens.
They started it with that.
And then that darn laptop, which you didn't ask for, the guy gave it to you because he knew you were an honest man and would try to do the right thing.
I was his last chance, his last hope.
Because the FBI didn't do anything.
And a number of senators didn't respond to it.
They've doctored pictures. They've used AI to say things you never said. Like, and you know what, though? Most of the people know it was all fake because look at the way people greet you wherever we go. They love
both bar associations, the New York Bar Association and the D.C. Bar, want to get rid of me. And they are made up of people just like the people who would tolerate this un-American communist action.
If they don't want to be in America, why don't they leave?
Well, yeah, why don't they go
create their own country in China? Yeah.
China has a
See
legal
how they'll
system
get along in China.
that Nancy wants for New York where you have to prove your innocence.
And if I may add, Mayor,
please, Ted.
if I may, when I see how these bar associations in both New York and Washington,
you've
D.C.,
sat through some of those.
When I see how unfair they treat you, it's how unfair they are, how they treat you, an objectively good man who's contributed so much to our legal system and our system of justice in this country. It makes you wonder, and it's a scary proposition. Have we already lost the country? Have we already lost? And I hate to say it.
What do you think? I'm going to give you my answer. I think we've lost it, and we have to get it.
Bingo.
I used to
that's
think.
it.
I used to think a year ago, and we've all talked about this.
Yes,
I used to think a year ago we're fighting for our way of life.
Yeah.
That it's in play. I now believe we're fighting to get it back.
Bingo.
I mean, when you see that, I mean, this happened. This happened in America. We indicted a man. I don't care, president or anybody. We indicted a man for a crime. For a crime.
Not specifying what that crime
is. And the person doing it thinks he can do that.
Yeah.
He thinks the law allows him to indict for a crime, and someday he'll tell us what the crime is, possibly before the trial. How does this survive? How does that judge? We'll talk about the judge in a minute. How does I clerked was a law clerk to a very tough federal judge, argued the Rosenberg case on appeal as a government lawyer. Was a great trial lawyer and a great judge.
Was that Judge McMahon?
Yeah, and was tough as hell on lawyers because he expected us to be perfect.
Yeah.
He said you have one of the most important jobs in the United States in a democracy, which is to protect the rights of people.
I love that.
And you can't make mistakes. Mistakes aren't tolerated. This would have resulted in him going to the Bar Association himself and asking that this DA be disbarred.
Yeah.
For this paragraph, which could not have been written by a lawyer. You cannot have left crime. The minute I saw this, and I'm sorry, a lot of lawyers didn't pick this up, but I happen to be really good at what I do. I happen to have accomplished a lot more than most lawyers accomplish. Just in like 10 years, I accomplished more than they accomplished in an entire career. So I'm sorry, I have to say that for myself. I also was the most productive prosecutor of the 20th century. Go check it. Now, the minute you see crime, and then the minute I saw that, I went through the entire indictment. I said, is he going to define that crime somewhere? Is this moron going to define? And all I saw is a cut and paste of the same paragraph 33 more times. You just changed the date and the ledger. It's the same words. So I say to myself, I don't understand Trump's lawyers. I just stood up in court and I said, Judge, I'm sorry, my client can't plead to this. And he would say, why? Because it doesn't charge him with anything he can plead to. What is he going to do? Yeah. He doesn't know what crime this is.
Yeah.
How can he say he's guilty or not guilty? Oh, I can tell you, basically, my client doesn't commit crimes. So Mr. Bragg is saying my client committed a crime.
Yeah.
He did this in pursuance of a crime. I can tell you that generally my client doesn't commit crimes. Are we in America, Judge? Or are we in a Soviet state or a Nazi state? Judge, this indictment has to be thrown out.
Could they have done that at that venue?
Of course, the judge can throw it out with what we call sua sponte, on his own.
Yeah.
A good judge with a respect for the Constitution, the laws, and civilization would have thrown this right out and say, Mr. Bragg, you're out of court. It's impossible for the defendant to plead. He wouldn't have taken a plea. You can't. How is Trump pleading not guilty? Basically, Trump has pleaded not guilty to committing any crime during this period of time in the state of New York.
It's crazy.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's true, by the way. Look, think about this. They searched his life and mine. They took my iCloud account without telling me the day I became his lawyer. And for 3 years, they kept it and went through it. And then they gave it back or released it the day I stopped being his lawyer. They're spying on his lawyer. They searched me. They went through every business transaction of the last 20 years. Did the same thing for him. This is the best they could come up with on a New York businessman. I know New York. This guy's got to be the cleanest guy in New York.
Knowing
this
that
is
they've
it.
been, knowing they've been scouring through every
Yes.
aspect of his
mean,
life
after a
for
while, you
years
stop.
now.
And the amount
And
of
this is
money
what-
they paid,
yeah.
even with the whole Russian collusion
Yeah.
thing that
And this is
Hillary
all they
Clinton
got?
paid for, cost the taxpayer, they say, $45 million. Could be even more.
Yeah, and now they did the same thing with me. Except I got a letter saying they found nothing. But they're still trying. They're trying to indict me in Georgia. They're trying to indict me. The prosecutor's trying to indict me. But I committed no crimes. Okay.
Well,
I could plead to this. I could plead not
I
guilty.
want to
I
say
don't commit
something,
crimes.
Rudy. You
All
gotta
right.
let me say this. There is a legal defense fund for Rudy. I got to look it up because he's had to get a lot of lawyers, and
they're trying to bankrupt me.
Yeah,
That's what they're doing.
They're trying to bankrupt, and I got to find it. Freedom.
But that's,
Fund.
I mean, that's their, there's a great article in the New York Post the other day by Andrew McCarthy. You probably know Andrew because he's on Fox quite a bit. He happened to be an assistant U.S. attorney that I hired and that handled, very, very important cases, both when I was U.S. attorney and thereafter. And he's a legal commentator, and he wrote a brilliant column the other day that the whole purpose of this is not necessarily to convict Trump or to convict me. The purpose is to harass you, destroy you, so that other people don't join. And it works. You know how hard it was for Trump to get a lawyer? The lawyer who took over his defense had to leave his law firm. And no bar association cares about that. They don't care about the total corruption of our profession. All they care about is get Giuliani, get Trump.
And that's the concerning part, Mayor. That the Bar Association, it used to be liberals back in the day.
The liberals, they're
no
no longer liberals anymore.
right. They used to be the ones that would defend everybody.
Dershowitz is a liberal.
Yeah.
And nobody talks to him. His friends don't talk to him.
They used to be the ones that would defend speech, stuff that they disagreed with, but they always were the ones, right?
If I were
Now
defending
it's
a terrorist, I'd be a hero.
It's the Communist Party. Actually, Rudy always said the Democrats should change their name because they were the party of slavery.
Absolutely.
And look at Biden's past. Biden's such a racist, and he loved the KKK leader. But I really want to get this off my chest because I am a good friend of Rudy's, and I've seen what they've tried to do to him.
That's okay.
I know great lawyers who are trying to defend Rudy, but they all need to get paid. So please, if you can, whatever you can, go to Rudy Giuliani freedomfund.com. Rudy Giuliani Fund. freedomfund.com.
You're defending yourself, too.
Rudy does not have anything to do with this. Friends of his has set it up, and they actually pay the legal bills when money comes
most of
in.
them, not all.
Yeah, they can. They can't. We haven't gotten enough money, but they're trying to help these other lawyers that have helped Rudy. So please do what you can. Thank you for allowing me to say that because I know you don't like asking for anything.
I have a very hard time
But this
asking
is
for money
so-
for myself. I can do it for other
but
people.
this isn't even just about the mayor or
Right.
getting these lawyers paid. This is about defending the rule of law in this country
Amen.
and our way of life
Yep.
and the system that we've had for hundreds of years. So this is so much bigger than any of us.
It is.
And
It's bigger
so
than me. It's bigger than Trump.
It's important that we're supporting this.
Yes.
And I
Yep.
think Ted got us, Dr. Maria, and I saw you agreed with it, to the point that I really wanted to make, which is it's gone already.
Yeah.
We're there. Don't think that the United States government is the Biden regime. It is not the United States government any longer. The state of New York is a corrupt Democratic machine, as is the state of Illinois. Look at the election of a radical, defund the police in a place where murders are greater than in Vietnam, and they disproportionately affect African Americans. And Black
crazy-
Lives Matter has never said a word about the slaughter of. And I want you to focus on it this way also, because who understands it better than I do as a prosecutor? Sometimes the murders that take place between two criminals, and they shouldn't happen. The mafia murders between two criminals. Some people say, well, who cares? Well, I care. But I understand people saying that. A lot of people who get murdered are innocent people. A lot of black people who get murdered are innocent people. Their children in the middle of a crossfire.
All the young children walking home from school.
The vast majority of the community is against it. The vast majority of the community are good people.
Yep.
But where's Black Lives Matter? Every week, these macabre statistics come out, and you just wait for is it 4 this weekend or is it 5 or the 6?
Yeah.
They've had some with 12 and 20.
Yeah.
But I don't see the Black Lives Matter, except for a few African American conservatives. I don't see black politicians. I don't see Prince Obama doing that.
I agree with you.
That's his city.
Yep.
It just got worse while he was president. Why? Because, well, we'll talk about Obama at another time.
He planted the seeds for.
Well, he started the whole
communism.
thing. He was trained by a communist, Saul Alinsky.
Yep.
And you look at his views.
So, Rudy, I know we're coming to a close of this beautiful
we got to show one more
session. So this is a very interesting story here about this judge is she out of Albany?
No. This is a judge in the Bronx. This is
Bronx.
So this is not Bragg. This is a different district attorney's office. District attorney's office did the right thing here. This is
and this is a picture we're looking at right now.
Yeah, the picture we're looking. That's a picture of the judge.
And the victim is in that oval.
The judge is named Nayata Samaj. That's her there, and that's the little boy who was killed by his father.
His stepdad.
His father choked him, or stepfather.
Yeah.
His name is Tyrese Minter, and he's only 28 years old. The young boy was 15 years old. He was allegedly fatally choked. This is from the New York Post. Let me give it the right attribution. Patrick Riley and Larry Salona. Great reporters, by the way.
Good reporters.
A stepfather charged with strangling his 15-year-old stepson to death in January was freed without bail by a notoriously lenient Bronx judge Wednesday, despite a request by prosecutors that he be remanded. So here's a case where the prosecutors did the right thing, and this maniac judge released a murderer to the streets of New York.
Now, to educate me, Rudy, who has the power to remove this judge now?
She was originally a criminal court judge, which means I'm guessing she was selected by this communist de Blasio originally.
So the mayor would appoint?
The mayor appoints...
So could Eric Adams remove her?
She could be removed only by the court.
Only by the court.
But she could also be indicted, and she could also be disbarred.
And she's a legal lawyer, right?
She could be disbarred.
She's a law license, so she should have an ethical complaint about, more than an ethical complaint. If the stepfather is...
This woman is a danger.
Can kill
that
a young
judge is
boy.
a danger to the people in the Bronx.
Right.
Minter, that's the alleged murderer, was arraigned Wednesday in Bronx criminal court before Judge Nayata Samaj, who ordered he be released on his own recognizance, even though the DA's office asked that he remain locked up ahead of his trial. The stepdad, that's the alleged murderer, his name is Tyrese Minter, catch this, was on parole after being released from prison a month earlier, allegedly put his stepson in a chokehold and killed him.
What was he on parole for earlier? Do you know? But
I'm gonna find out.
Yeah, whatever it is, you're bad enough to be in the system.
I got it. Minter was on parole for an assault that landed him in prison for 3 years.
Yeah.
He was released this past December.
Yeah. Putting his hands on somebody else.
Samaj, a Democratic judge, you don't have to tell me that, by the way. The party of the criminal.
Yeah.
The party of slavery.
Yeah.
Samaj, a Democratic judge who was elected in 2021 after earlier serving in the Bronx Civil Court, has a history of cutting loose alleged violent offenders. In one case last May, she sparked outrage after she ruled in favor of a 16-year-old rapper, Cameron Williams, known as C. Blue, who was accused of shooting and wounding an NYPD police officer while he was on probation for a prior gun case. Samaj ruled that the cop had no reason to search the teen during a June 18 incident, and Williams' case was dropped.
I don't understand why they don't want public safety. I don't get it. I don't get why these people are so pro the criminals and the poor victims. We're good friends with Madeline Brom. She's got that's directly under Alvin Bragg.
Well, she will say that Bragg killed my son.
Yep. Unbelievable.
And it's not too much of an exaggeration to say that. So we have a judge that lets murderers out on the street, alleged murderers on the street. when the normal situation in a murder charge
I don't get
is incarceration until you're tried because you're a danger to the public.
Yeah.
These people, by the way, are people with long records.
Yeah.
It's not like it was an accidental murder.
Right.
You got to be a fool.
Yeah.
To think. These people have long records.
Well,
They're out on parole because the state is too lenient as well.
Yeah.
So so those of us in New York with a DA like the one we have, with a judge like this, I don't know, are we living in America?
No.
Are we conceive of as America?
No,
we're living
right
in
front of our eyes.
We're living in a totalitarian state that is dangerous for innocent people, disproportionately dangerous for innocent black people. Not because of the police. The police situations with black people are minor compared to what a woman like this does.
Well, I think the majority of states will secede and let California, New York, Oregon be on their own.
They're not going to secede. Don't use the word secede.
Well,
nobody's seceding. We're going to win it back at the ballot box.
I hope. There's so much cheating that goes on.
We're going to win it back at the ballot box. I think what happened in Chicago is an aberration. Chicago is a sad place. It has too many brainwashed people. So does New York. Yeah. And even in Wisconsin, where they elected the left-wing judge, they did elect a Republican supermajority legislature.
Yeah.
The rest of the ballot was completely. It was like a Republican wipeout of the Democrats. I think that happened because of abortion.
Okay.
That was an abortion aberration. I think Wisconsin has, if anything, turned to being more of a Republican state. The problem with it is, with the majority Democrat in Wisconsin court, they can completely corrupt the election system because those Democrat courts will issue corrupt decisions in election cases.
Yeah.
The Pennsylvania Supreme Court did it. I won't get into the interpretation they made. It was equally as ridiculous as Bragg saying you don't have to charge a crime. You don't have to say what the crime is. The criminal justice system in New York has now turned into the prosecutor will tell you what you're charged with if he wants to. I don't understand how you plead. I really don't. I mean that. Yeah. I mean as a lawyer, and I don't understand Trump's lawyers. Sorry, guys and ma'am. I don't understand this. You let him plead to an indictment that says crime? What did he plead to? What did he plead to not doing? He doesn't know. He pled to not committing any crime in the New York Penal Code. Well, he probably didn't commit any crime in the New York Penal Code, but at least say that.
Yeah.
This is an inadequate. This piece of paper is what we call as a null and void.
Yeah.
This is a completely useless document, and it should have been treated that way by his lawyers. And then we would see what the judge is upset because his family is being attacked. His family isn't being attacked. His daughter is a political operative. She makes some money running political campaigns. She worked for Biden and for Harris. He contributed to Biden, and she has a history of supporting these radical candidates. So he's not biased. He doesn't have to recuse himself. There's another one. And the judge is complaining they're not going after his family. Nobody's talking about anybody else in his family. They're talking about your political operative daughter. That's what they're talking about, who helps elect these people who are making our country what it is, unfortunately.
Communist.
We have a right to raise that about you. And I'm sorry, when you become a judge, you give away a certain amount of your privacy, particularly when you have an unethical conflict, Judge.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Rudy. I always learn so much from you. I'm just going to go over. You're probably watching this on Twitter, the live stream, Twitter, Getter, Rumble. Don't forget to like and sign up and subscribe to Rudy's channels, his Rumble channel, his Twitter feed, his Getter, his Truth. And Twitch.
Rudy Giuliani.
And RudyGiulianiCS.com for his fabulous podcasts. And, if you want to sign up for my stuff too, I won't mind. But thank you very much. I do appreciate it. And thank you for what you do.
Now you see why I have such good podcasts. Go back, when you go to RudyGiulianiCS.com, she's on probably 20 of the podcasts out of 340 or whatever. Go back and look at a couple of them. A few of them went over 1 million that she was on.
Yeah.
Some of my biggest podcasts
I know
We're
we're
with
trying
Dr. Ryan.
to end this, but I just want to say about healthcare, science is not absolute. And for Fauci to always say he is science and to try to silence other voices.
One of the first ones.
That's not science. Science is having a lot of voices that are different and really looking at the whole spectrum. So a lot of people, a lot of good doctors, good nurse practitioners who tried to speak out against stuff got blackballed, and that is not science.
She was doing it at the time. So if you go back to RudyGiulianiCS.com and go to my podcast, you can go back 2 years ago, and while it's going on, she's interviewing the first
whistleblower
from China who says it came from Wuhan,
Yeah.
which our compromised president still hasn't said. Nor is he going after China for that. I mean, that's another subject.
Yeah.
But thank you very, very much
Thank you.
for watching, and stay with us. We got a big fight on our hands. I mean, a legal fight. Don't do that garbage to me. I do not support violence. I never did. And a judge has so declared, an Obama judge. And thank you, Judge, for being fair and impartial. There are some, not a lot, that can be. Well, thank you very, very much for joining us, and God bless America.
Amen.